My name is John Bedell. For those of you that don't know me, this is Dale Omart. We are two of the members of the board of Honduras. We just wanted to say hello to you. We're going to introduce the founder of Honduras Ministries, Jim, and his wife Frances here in a few moments, but we wanted to take a second and say hello. Tonight really is all about helping people that don't know anything about Honduras Ministries start at the very beginning and understand where we're going in the future. So from the very beginning, we're going to look at where it all started. We're going to look at where we're at now, and we're going to look at where we want to take this ministry and these resources to these communities in the future. And so I hope by the end of this, there is a crystal clear picture for you guys. At any point tonight, if you have questions, comments, anything like that, you can always go towards the live feed and put questions on there. Also, you have a lot of board members walking around. Many of you are probably at tables with them. And so feel free to discuss amongst yourselves and have conversations. You won't bug us by talking at your tables. We want you to walk away knowing what you want to know about Honduras Ministries, because ultimately we want you to partner with us as we partner with the communities that we work with down there. I see a lot of faces in this room that have been down to Honduras. You guys know how impactful that is. I say every single trip I go down there, I end up coming back saying, wow, they've really helped me and ministered to me much more than I've helped and ministered to them. And so it is a beautiful partnership, and it is something that I think Dale and I would both wax poetic about how much it's changed our life, even kind of the trajectory of our lives in some capacity. So that's it for me. You want to say hi?
Jim and I have known each other for over 10 years now, and I entered into the relationship thinking it was going to be kind of like a one trip and done type of deal. Well, in fact, it wasn't even going to be that. We were going to give a special offering. But God changed that whole concept when there were people in the church that we were working with at that time who came up and said, let's go, let's plan a trip. And we ended up going, and during my trip, I realized that God had a role, a more long-term role for me. And I've been involved ever since. John and I met on a trip, and it was during that trip that we really began to understand, I think, the potential of what the ministry could be. And the vision that has become Honduras Ministries has a life of its own. None of us own it. It is simply revealed to us as we live day to day and try to respond day to day to the needs. So I am excited to have you here to be able to share this with you. And as John mentioned, if you have questions, we want to make sure those questions get answered. And we're going to go through that whole process of giving you an idea of the foundation of the ministry all the way through to where we're going, or at least as best as we can see right now where we're going. And it all started with Jim and Frances. Jim went to Honduras. He wasn't necessarily intending to be a missionary. But again, God takes over sometimes. And so here he is now, some 23 or 24 years after his first trip to Honduras. And he is leading this ministry that has blossomed over that time. I'm excited to give you the chance to hear what's on his heart, to have him share a little bit of that ministry. And if Frances speaks, we'd love to hear her a little bit too. But right now I'm going to invite Jim and Frances to come up, and we're going to give him the opportunity to share. And if you would all just welcome Jim and Frances. This is Frances, by the way.
She's the really quiet one.
Yeah. So Jim, take it away.
So I can say my first trip to Honduras was in 1997, and I had no intention of doing what I'm doing today. But as we went through that period, and I met my wife, and that was in the year 2000, and we were married in June, and now it's been some 24 years that I've been affiliated in the country of Honduras. And I'm just grateful that God has let me be a part of what God does in his kingdom. I want to start out tonight with, well, let me get this clarified. Excuse me. I've had many inquiries about my health, and I've had many phone calls. In fact, I had a person call me yesterday morning from Dallas, Texas, wanting to know how you doing. I'm doing awesome. I had COVID in 2020, hospitalized a couple of months, came out of there with a wheelchair, oxygen, dragging around the O2 bomb, I call it. And next thing you know, in a couple of weeks when I got home, I was behind a walker. And then I said, I'm going to do away with this. And then I got a walking stick. And I used that thing maybe a week. I said, no more. So here I am. The doctors told me. The doctors told me you're going to be on oxygen the rest of your life. I am God's oxygen. Thank Him. Amen. So Francis and I were helping out in a church in a little town called Choluteca. We were with a local missionary named Ronaldo, and we were working with the church and actually started that in 2004, I believe it was. And as we were doing that, we had a good place to live. You're going to see this on a video in a few minutes. But as we get into this tonight, I want to show you or tell you where this ministry began and how it began. Number one up front, Dale hit it right. There was no plan. God has just been blessed, or God has blessed our life so much as He's called us into this. I came kicking and screaming. I didn't have no intention of doing this. Now, I wouldn't change it for the world. The best thing I've ever done. But we were affiliated with a church and helping them with rental of a building and just trying to have worship services. And as time went on, there was a young man in that at that time, and he's blind. His name is Umberto. And he was married, had 4 children, and lo and behold, his wife passed away. Now, I'm in the country of Honduras, and I see the impoverished there. I see people in the streets begging. I see blind people in the streets, and I'm thinking, how in God's world to keep them getting run over? And some of them don't. Some of them get ran over, killed. And we said to ourselves, we can't let this happen to this man. 4 small children. The little girl, I believe at that time, was about 3. So we started supporting this family. And through that support, we still have them in this ministry today. And this is the story I wanted to tell you how it got started. We started out doing food support with them. And we also provided the educational supplies so that the children could go to school. And we've got one of those children whose name is Lupita, and we want to get into that little film. She's going through all of the old time of our school, from cradle to right now, not the grave, but from cradle till she's a very successful young lady. She has her own beauty salon. And so I want to show you this. And you'll see a man during this little film. I started to say película, but it's a film video. And he's in a hammock. His name's Umberto. Go back to that again. Now, he learned to make those hammocks since we've been here. And we've sold several of those for him here in the United States. And it's just awesome. In fact, I have one of those hammocks in my home in Choluteca. And I love being in it. When you guys come down and visit, many of you get into that. I know.
Mi nombre es Rosario Guadalupe Pineda Álvarez, tengo 24 años y soy estudiante de Administración de Empresas y saqué un curso de belleza y cosmetología. Bueno, yo estaba pequeña cuando nosotros nos involucramos con Honduras Ministries. A través de mi papá, el hermano Reinaldo se presentó a hermano Jean. Entonces ya a través de ellos decidieron así apoyarnos y hasta el momento han estado con nosotros siempre en las buenas y en las malas, apoyándonos y gracias a Dios y ellos seguirán bendiciendo sus vidas. Bueno, la verdad mi vida no sería la misma porque se me hubiese dificultado mucho estudiar, alcanzar mis sueños y mis sueños como de estilista profesional y gracias a ellos, a su apoyo, ellos ayudaron a cumplir mis sueños. Gracias a Dios todo bien y estoy muy agradecida con ellos y con Dios porque los puso en nuestro camino. Pues gracias a Dios me pusieron el saloncito así con mi espejo, mi silla, mi champusera. A mucha gente le ha llamado la atención, han venido, me han caído trabajitos, no al exceso, pero sí vamos empezando poco a poco. No todo se empieza de un solo, sino que poco a poco se va empezando y gracias a Dios todo me ha salido bien. Muy orgullosa, muy satisfecha con mis clientes y gracias también a Dios por las personas que puso en mi camino, porque sin ellos no estuviera donde estoy.
My favorite things, and getting to know Jim and getting to know the ministry over all the years that I've been here, one of my favorite things has always been Honduras Ministries is what it is today because Jim Martin just decided that he was just going to keep doing the next right thing. They saw a person in need and they decided to help. That person had children and those children needed help. Those children needed help with school. They needed help with food. And Jim and Francis just kept doing the next right thing. And because of that, we sponsor hundreds of children. And there's hundreds of children in Honduras that have had an education that would have had no access to that. So for me, Jim, thank you. What an example of just being able to just keep going, just doing the next right thing over and over again, and just watching how God can use that to really change communities and change the world. So we want to do a thing real quick. If Dale and Jim want to join me out here, we're going to take a little tour of where our ministry is currently, some of the projects that we have going on right now. We're going to go through Cerco. Partner with a pastor there. His name is Nicho. He's a hilarious little Honduran man. If you get to meet him, you will enjoy his company. Very happy, always happy. So we're going to just take a video tour through this. We had some of our guys down there make this video, and the three of us are just going to kind of talk about the space. This is the road going into Cerco de Piedro. You do get to pass some beautiful country. It's kind of up in the mountains. So this is like the cool place to go. I mean, like temperature-wise, it's a lot cooler, so I like this one a lot.
And don't expect that the roads to every community are going to be like that one. That's just blessed.
Actually, I'm pretty sure that's the only one like that.
That's the only one. All of our other communities are down very difficult
Yeah,
roads.
let's pause that right here. This is the church building. You can see over here on the left side of the screen, there's a pad. They use this for classroom space, for Sunday school, for stuff like that. This community does have a state school in it now. Basically, the entire community will gather when we're there, and we'll have meals there and go for it. I think
Yeah,
you're on.
this was the first church now that we entered in this community, and we're going to show you throughout this film too where we actually started, which is just up the road from here. And we were fortunate to build this building, and this is the first church. Now, our child enrichment program didn't begin here. It began in another community called La Fortunita, and we will get to that too in just a few minutes.
One of the things that might be helpful too is to introduce you to the name of the ministry in Honduras, because they don't call it Honduras Ministries in Honduras. They call it what, Jim?
Association Ministerios Pan de Vida.
Okay, everybody know what that means? Oh, okay. What does it mean, Jim?
Bread of Life Ministries.
And so when you look at that sign that's over the door, they have the ministry name there, but they also have basically the theme verse, which is in Matthew 25, which talks about giving seeing somebody who's hungry and giving them bread. And that is essentially the history, the DNA of the ministry.
Right, and also we, on our first van, we still have, that is penciled or painted on the side of it, Matthew 25:36, where I was hungry, you fed me, I was thirsty, you gave me a drink.
So the children's program involves several different components. If you want to visit the wall over here, you'll see some of those things that are outlined that are basic to the children's program: education, nutrition, scriptural teaching. There are a couple of meetings after school every week. When the kids get to about 6th grade, they graduate from the state school, and in some communities we have been able to employ teachers who will take them on up through the 9th grade. If they stick with the program, if their parents don't pull them out of school, they go work in the fields or whatever. And when they graduate from 9th grade, they're prepared to move into other parts of life.
You know, what a great point. Let's talk about that. Gary, if you want to pause that footage there so we don't
Pause
get
for a
too far behind. You know, maybe it's worth taking a second to explain that. One of the things that I've personally had friends ask me is, why do you go, I always tell my friends, I say we plant schools, not churches. That's kind of the language that I use around it. We're not an organization that goes into these communities and plants churches. We do try to go in and plant schools. And one of the questions I get all the time is, John, you're in a country with socialized education. These kids have free education. Why do you guys need to go in and do those things? And I think the reality, kind of the way something looks on paper versus the way that things operate in reality, is always a fair conversation to have. It's in the cities, yes. If a child is growing up in the city, in Choluteca, in Tegucigalpa, if they're growing up in one of the big cities, they do absolutely pretty much have unfettered access to education all the way through university. But in the country of Honduras, the government is really not overly concerned with these small pocket communities that we operate in outside of the major cities. They're not worried about children in La Fortunita or Cerco de Pedro having access to that later education. So what we do is we try to show that, hey, there's a lot of kids here, and we can have a viable school operating, and then we try to work with the government and try to get the government to recognize that and start providing teachers and education and things like that. But that's the hurdle in the country of Honduras for us, is to bring education to these communities that the government, though technically, yes, they have access to, actually doesn't put that into practice and doesn't give them that access that they say they have. So that's why we do what we do as far as the schools are concerned, because yes, it is a socialized country. Yes, there is technically education for all, but you do kind of have to be geographically in the right place for that to actually apply to you. So
Let me add to that just a moment. The whole school system in Honduras and the communities where we work, the government furnishes the kindergarten through sixth grade. When children, the whole concept was when we first began, why do I need to go to school? Because after they get through the sixth grade, they still don't get an opportunity to go to work, not even like in Wendy's or someplace like that. So the parents pulled them out, put them in the fields, and that's the best thing they could do. But now we're seeing some success with our going on in furnishing, after that, the 7th, 8th, and 9th grades. And we do that because in Honduras, when a child finishes 9 years of school, they qualify for some vocation. That can be carpentry, mechanical, nursing.
you know, Jim said something to me one time when we were sitting around talking. He said, the reason why I believe in education so much, John, is because I believe that education is the blanket that we're going to put out the flames of poverty in Honduras with. And that has always really stuck with me, because that is what we are giving the children in our program. We're giving them access to this thing that will not just change their lives, it will change their community. It will change the world around them by having access to this, to the education. And because of that, because we partner with the local churches, we open the doors for these families to hear about the gospel. We open up the door for God to change lives in these communities. And you'll come down and see, in La Fortunita, you will see the difference between communities that have our program in it and communities that don't. There's a very stark difference. You can see the church change the community right in front of your eyes.
I want to explain. This water comes from a mountain stream, and this is the mountainous country of Honduras. And unfortunately, they do have running water. They may get it an hour a day, maybe. Oftentimes when we're there, especially with groups, we don't have sufficient water to go around. But lo and behold, in this coming February, Living Water International is putting in a water well in Cerco de Piedra in the school, and they're going to give us access to it for our children.
Nice.
So let's do that. And by the way, Living Water International is a partner with World Vision, and we have done some partnering with World Vision over the years.
It'd be helpful for you to know that the church in Cerco de Piedra worked to put together all of the food bags that are distributed. So the food is brought to Cerco de Piedra, and they pack up about 143 food bags are packed up and delivered to families every month out of Cerco de Piedra, and it's done by the volunteers in this church.
If you're interested about those more, there's actually these great little posters, these great posters over here that Emma made for us. There's one that kind of details the food bags there.
this is the school where the water wheel will be placed in that system there. That's this kinder through 6th grade, and that's ran by the government. And we have our school system there in the church building and in the little building that you just saw.
So back to the food bags, what I was talking about was, this is all intertwined. So the children will get to 6th grade, and if there's no extra access for education there for them, their parents will pull them from school at that point, sometimes earlier, because a lot of the attitude there is, what's the difference between 4th grade or 6th grade if I'm just going to pull them from the school and have them work the fields with us anyway? So the child will go and work the fields, and that does produce a very small income, but it does produce some income. And the parents will do that because that income will help them provide food.
You see the rock wall? That's against the highway. That property was donated to us to build a church building on, and we just didn't know how to do that at that time. And I was there with a friend of mine and a brother. His name is Joe Bell, Old Lathrop Christian Church. And as we were there, he looked out across the street where the church building is now. And he says, "Who owns that property?" I said, "I don't have a clue." Turns out it was one of the members of the church. And they sold us the property, $1,400. I'll never forget it. And so we built that church building that you saw. But this was the original site where we were going to build it. But we would have had to put in pilings, and don't tell them what all, to shore it up and make it usable. So we still have the property. If you guys got an idea what to do with it, tell me.
So they'll do worship. They've got a little sound system that they'll go in there. They'll do worship. They'll do the Bible classes, and they bring the kids in. And if you're part of the children's program is that we do 2 hot snacks a week. So they'll come in. The kids will get to come in. There'll be a hot snack, and then the Bible classes and the lessons and all of those things are all
Gary,
part
I
of
want
the
you to
program.
pause right here. Whoa. Is that a nutritious meal or what? Huh? We plus the Coke. We don't normally do pizza, but in this case, I don't know how it got in there. But no, you ask the children, they're going to tell you, no, it's nutritious. I love it. So just like everybody here, pizza. All right, let's go.
So we have a lot of different areas. One of the things, I guess this is a good time to plug the wall back here. If you go out the back doors there and turn right to the left, we have a wall that has available children to sponsor right there. If at any point you'd like to do that, go for it. There's a QR code on the cards. You can just scan the QR code and it'll take you straight to our website. That's really kind of the lifeblood of Honduras Ministries, is this child enrichment program. The ability to have these children sponsored, it provides the food bags, it provides the access to education, it provides the Bible lessons, it provides us the financial resources to do community projects and to really kind of further our vision and our mission in Honduras, and working with Panda Vida with the board. So that the way that it works is Panda Vida has its own Honduran board, and then Honduras Ministries has our own board, and we're kind of the left and the right arm is how we refer to it. So there has to be a board down there to run that ministry, so they basically are the boots on the ground. And really what we talk about a lot is how to better leverage resources. Our job as a board for Honduras Ministries is we are trying to figure out, like, we are resource heavy. So we are trying to figure out how to take those resources and get them where they need to be and leverage those so that the people that are, sparse on the resources, but they have immediate and familial access to the need, can do what they do and be the boots on the ground and work through the lives of the people in their own communities.
And so we do stuff like this. We get other people together and we talk about this. And this has been an event that we've had now we were trying to figure out a little earlier, 5, 6, 7 years. I don't know, last year, of course, it was online. But we're also looking for ways to take this to the next level. And I want to introduce an idea for you tonight that I hope maybe some of you will run with. And that would be to take the online recording that we're going to make available and host a party yourself to introduce this ministry to some of your friends and some of the people in your network, and to see if some of them might have an interest in perhaps becoming the sponsor of a child. And we'll talk a little bit more about the specifics of what it means to sponsor a child here in a little bit, but the bottom line is this: people can't do anything until they know what the problem is. Our job here in the United States is to share the problem and the need with other people so that we can hopefully leverage some resources that will help with the ongoing ministry in Honduras. We're really excited about the people that we have in Honduras. Pastor Nicho, Pastora Susana, Pastor Javier. We've got so many quality people there that are working, and they're just wonderful people to be partners with. Manuel and Christian, and if you've been to Honduras, you know these names, and you know what wonderful people they are. And I never get bored with the idea that God chose to make it possible for us to be involved in His work. And that we have the awesome opportunity to be a part of changing a nation. And that's literally what we're trying to do.
As a whole, we started in Cerco de Piedra, but as Jim mentioned earlier, where we really started and began to develop the idea of this child enrichment program, the child sponsorship program, was in a community called La Fortunita. And Pastora Susana is the pastor of that church, and I mean, she's a logistical wizard. I don't know how she keeps everything straight, but this is a woman who's lived in this community for her whole life. She knows everybody. She knows all the kids. She keeps everything straight. She runs the Bible program. She helps with the teaching. She's the pastor of the church. She does all of these amazing things. I have the privilege of sponsoring one of her daughters. Her daughter, Delia, is one of the young ladies that I sponsor, and she is equally amazing. She's a fantastic child. She is in... We were talking, I think she's 15 now. It's been so weird, right? Because it's been 2 years since we've been down. Like, I miss being there, but it's almost, you have to think about these things for a second. So I think Delia is 15 now. I think she's in 10th grade. She's continuing her education. She's learning English. We chat as much as we can. I don't speak Spanish well at all, so she's better at English than I am at Spanish. So we do what we can do. But we have her testimony here. She's gonna talk about the program in La Fortunita, and this was the community that really was kind of the genesis. A lot of trial and error with what we did and how we did it, and the things that we tried to do in the community, and the things that we were able to do in the community. And they have been so loving and patient as Honduras Ministries really kind of got its feet under it. And that, again, is simply because of the relationship that Jim and Francis were able to build with this community and with these people by keeping their word and doing the next right thing. So let's watch Delia talk here for a second. Oh, yeah, go for it.
Just before we get into this testimony, I want to tell you how this got started with our child enrichment program. This is where the first community was. I'll never forget it so long as I may live. We decided that we were going to start this program, and we wanted 25 children. That was it. So we got with Pastor Sandra, and we told her, or Pastor Susana, not Pastor Sandra, Pastor Susana. And we said, Susie, we need 25 children, and we want to start this program. And what we're going to do is, and we explained to her the details, twice a week we're going to have meetings with the children, feed them a good hot meal, teach them hygiene products. Well, we thought we had enough money for that. Now, believe me, we did not have not one child sponsored yet. When we started the meeting, she brought 60 children into that. We said, Dale and I and John, we all three, we're in a hotel room, where's this money going to come from? And guess what? God provided. So let's go.
Hola, mi nombre es Delia María Flores, soy del proyecto de Niños de la Fortunita. Me involucré en Honduras Ministries gracias a que mi mamá es la pastora y desde muy pequeña he asistido a la iglesia con ella. Veníamos a la iglesia, estábamos en familia, siempre con mi familia hemos estado en la iglesia. Venimos prácticamente toda mi vida he estado en la iglesia desde muy pequeña. Me involucré, digamos que ya involucrada al 100% cuando tenía 12 años. Acepté a Cristo y luego me bauticé y así me he ido involucrando y sirviendo en la iglesia, gracias a Dios. Sin el programa creo que sería muy diferente porque en el programa he hecho amigos. Yo pasaba en mi casa, casi no salía, aunque vivo en una zona que se puede salir, pero casi no. Y al venir al programa me relacioné con varios de ellos, hice varios amigos En lo personal me han ayudado bastante el programa, gracias a que nos ayudan con útiles para el colegio, y eso ha sido un beneficio para mi mamá, ya que ella no ha comprado eso, sino que en el programa nos han ayudado y eso me ha servido bastante poder seguir, y también porque me ayudaron a continuar en la iglesia, no solo lo que aprendía cuando era niña, sino que también me esforzaron un poco más, me ayudaron a crecer espiritualmente para servirle a Dios. Lo que más he disfrutado es estar en compañía con todos, porque ha sido un ambiente súper agradable con todos los niños del proyecto. Hemos salido a paseos. También nos encantaba que nos daban la palabra de Dios con imágenes de la creación, por ejemplo. Nos enseñaban muchas cosas con historias bíblicas y nos encanta que nos hablen de Dios de una manera que nosotros podamos entenderla a nuestra manera por la juventud, y nosotros la hemos aprendido bastante en el proyecto y eso nos ha motivado a seguir viniendo y a poder ser mejores.
But that's the community that we've had the children's program going the longest in. And I watched that video. I saw it earlier today, and watching it now, I think you can see it on the faces of those kids. I think that's the difference that this program makes in the community. It gives hope to the children of the community. They believe in themselves. They have the confidence to go out and try these things that they maybe never believed that they could or would even have access to. And I think that shows when you look at the kids in La Fortunita, when you see that program that's really taken hold and changed that community. So that's a little bit of that's where we started. Those are the two communities that really Honduras Ministries began in. The Cerco de Piedra started the partnerships and the food bags and things like that. And then with La Fortunita, that was really the genesis for the child enrichment program. So, Jim, do you want to say anything about the beginning of Honduras Ministries?
There in La Fortunita?
Mm-hmm.
We started there actually about the same time we started at Cerco de Piedra. But what we did, there was no church building and there was no real community church at all. And we met under a tree and had Bible studies. That's exactly what we did. And really what got us into that community and got us where they had confidence in us was they had a water well and the pump was bad. So we repaired the pump. In fact, we put a new pump in and we maintained it from there. And they also told us at that time, so many people have come out here and they said, well, we're going to help you do this and we're going to help you do that. But she said they walk away and never see them again. But we said, no. We're going to be consistent. We're going to do exactly what we said we would do. And now this is one of the most thriving communities that we've seen. Gone from a lot of idol worship, I'm trying to think of the term for it, devil worship, I guess that's what you could say, and they've burned that away. They now worship Jesus Christ in most cases. So we're really pleased. And the other part about that is, it's not about me. It's about God, okay? That's what it's about. And we love La Fortunita. We have a lot of friends there. In fact, how many of you are sponsoring a child there from here today? Good, awesome. We still have children for sponsorship there. All right, let's
It's
move on.
paradise.
Yeah.
I have to tell this story every time because it's just one of my favorite stories to tell about Jim. But this idea of, people come in and they make us this promise and then they leave. The first time Jim and Francis were in La Fortunita, anybody on the board that's met him, we all have this friend named Pedro. Pedro passed away a few years ago. He's a really old guy in the community. Very first time Jim was there, Pedro chased him off with a stick. Didn't like him, little 80-year-old man with a walking cane, and he's just chasing Jim out of the community because he was like, nope, we don't need you, we don't want you, we don't want your God, we don't know what you're selling, but we're not buying it. And then you fast forward, yeah, part of doing the next right thing sometimes is being stubborn. So Jim's got that one down. So he just keeps going, and he and Francis just stick and hang, and they just keep doing the next right thing in that community. And I have one of my absolute favorite pictures. I have it on my wall. Again, I don't speak Spanish. I didn't know what was happening, but I got this great picture of Pedro while we were down there. And it turns out that I got a picture of Pedro in a conversation with Jim and Francis. And in that conversation, he was telling them that he'd given up all of his idol worship, that he had decided that he was going to have a relationship with Jesus, and that he was very grateful that his friends had decided to stay and to help him through. And so Pedro left this earth knowing Jesus and having a relationship, because sometimes stubborn love is the best love. Yeah. There you go.
So John really hasn't shared a whole lot about why he became so passionate about Honduras Ministries. I would like you to explain why you went to Honduras the first time, what you were there to do, and what your impressions were having been there.
You know, that's perfect, because I really feel like I haven't spoken enough. So thanks for giving me some time here. I had actually I was just leaving Ozark Christian College. I was working at Northside Christian Church, and Joe and Kirsten Williams Joe was the senior pastor at that time, sent me down. Northside was a long-standing partner with Honduras Ministries, but just had really kind of no knowledge of what was going on. Communication had kind of broken down at some point, and Joe and Kirsten knew that I came in really with a passion for missions and wanting to be involved with the missions program there and see what we were doing in our community and globally and all of those things. So they sent me down there, and I really think it was just such a wild ride. I think I came down for 2 weeks at that point. I think that I was down for maybe 10 to 14 days. And one of the very first conversations we had, Jim and Dale started talking about this program that they were filling out an application for. Mm-hmm. They kind of this mission incubator program here in Kansas City. And it just sounded really familiar to me. This is completely without context. I go, okay, where's this office at that you're getting? Is that on Wed Street in the Overland Park, Merriam area? It was yeah, it's right there. Are you turning this application into a guy named Jay? Yeah, we are. We're turning it into a guy named Jay's one of my best friends. I literally was just talking with him about this program 2 weeks ago. Let's get him on the phone and talk to him. And so we sat right there in the living room with this application, and we talked to Jay and filled that out, and we got involved there. And but immediately in my mind, it just kind of clicked. I was like, that's not normal. I mean, Kansas City is a small, big town, but it's still a big town. And, so it was one of those things that for me, I kind of immediately started paying attention. And we've been really honest about that. That trip was we were at a point as a church at that point where we were going, we don't really know anything that's going on. We don't really know what they're doing. Last time we had any great communication, we felt like it was spread kind of thin. So we really want to go down and see what's happening to see if we still want to be a part of this ministry. And I went down there, and I remember it took about 48 hours, and I said, we're not going anywhere. In fact, we're doubling down. We're going to start giving more money. We're going to start bringing trips down again. We were as responsible for the communication breakdown as the ministry was. And I came back to Northside. I told Joe and Kirsten, and they were very supportive. They were like, well, okay, let's do it. And so we doubled down, and we went hard in the paint for Honduras Ministries, and I've started coming down 2 or 3 times a year. I mean, how many people have been on trips with us before? How many people have been down to Honduras? How many people are going to go again if they can work it out? Every single hand. How many people think that might be paradise on earth? Because I'm right there. I would go there in a heartbeat right now. I was talking in the line, and we were talking about the trips, and that's always my bent. That's always the way that I go in my head. I want you to come to Honduras with me. That's every time. I mean, we can talk about it, we can stand on stage, but one of the things that I think about the gospel is this message of come and see. It's not let me talk to you, but let me tell you about it. That's part of it. But the gospel is always come and see. And I want you to come see Honduras. I want you to come see these communities, because I have never met a single person how long is it? 8 years with the ministry? 8 years with the ministry. I have not met a single person that has come down on a trip and not been involved with the ministry when they get back from it. It is a come and see ministry, and if you come down there, it will change your life, and you'll be a part of Honduras Ministries moving forward. It's just I think we're just so ultimately confident in that. That's my story, and I bet if you went around your tables, that would be the story of the people at your table as well. So that's what I did. I got into that community, and I met Jim for the first time. That was the first time we'd met, and so I met Jim, and I knew Dale, and I was sold. And less than a day in the country, I knew that it was something special was happening, and I wanted to be a part of it. So. And then we stayed, yeah.
And so, believe me when I say, we're not here to twist any arms to get your support. We simply want to introduce you to what's going on and let you make up your own mind about whether or not this is something God might be calling you to help with. I hope that you'll decide to do that. I hope you'll see some value in what we're doing. But in the end, God is going to speak to each of us, and God has woven each of us into what he's doing in this world. And that's where you need to follow, what he's calling you to do. I'm just thankful he's called me into this. And I'm excited to see where it's going to go. We have a video that talks about where we are now, and also is designed to help you see a little bit more of where we're going to go. Why don't we go to that video, Gary, and we'll take you on a little tour of the countryside of La Fortunita. It's not, it's not really precise.
Choluteca, yeah.
So we started, as we talked about, the children's ministry started in La Fortunita, and then we went to Cerco de Pedra and got started there. And then also, we haven't mentioned the community of San Jose. And in San Jose, the first time I went there, I've got to tell this story. The first time I went to San Jose, we had a plan to do a little bit of a puppet show. We did that. I got up and spoke for like 10 or 15 minutes. And I thought, well, this is going great. And then the leaders of the church were kind of talking among themselves back over in the corner. And when I got done, they looked at me and they said, "Can you talk longer?" The answer is yes. So I've been asked to talk longer as a preacher. There's not a lot of preachers that can say that.
He wept like a baby for minutes.
So at any rate, San Jose, there's a young man named Javier who wanted to be a pastor, and he has since gone on to university, and he is now a teacher as well. His sister runs the program at the church there. We've gone on from San Jose up to a community called Cihuatepeque, which is a long ways geographically. We're talking probably how many miles? 100 miles? 125 miles?
I'm going to say right at 80 miles.
Okay, I'm overestimating it.
But it's a day's drive.
A day's drive based on the roads you have to go through. But there's a community in Cihuatepeque, there's a church there, and it's a distance. And so there's been a little bit of difficulty in communicating and working together. It is a community, however, that we are very committed to. I would say even right now, we're recommitted to that community. They reached out to us. They want to continue with what we're doing. We have a partnership with a church in Tegucigalpa, which is the capital city of Honduras. They're also helping to support that children's program. In fact, that church has made a commitment to sponsor 7 children. And so we just feel like that partnership is so valuable. We're going to do whatever it takes to continue to build on the ministry there. In fact, what I'm hoping is part of the results of this event tonight is that we will see at least 10 young people who are sponsored at Cihuatepeque in the children's program. And we'll see how it goes for the next 6 to 12 months. And if God blesses and we're able to continue there, that's awesome, because I'm confident that this program, it's not just about helping an individual family or a small group of families. This is transforming communities. And we're very excited to see that happen. Apart from Cihuatepeque, there's one other program that we have recently started, and that's in a community near Choluteca called Ciudad Nuevo, New City. And there's an exciting brand new church there, and we're trying to get that children's program started. But we're going to stop there because the vision doesn't stop there.
We have, we started that program full swing this year. Now, this grew up throughout the pandemic, and we've been affiliated with this congregation now for 2 years, Francis. And we have learned, it's such a phenomenal place. They're in a community of about 5,000 or 6,000 people, which is rural outside the big city of Choluteca, which is not all that big. Normally, we target areas that are 350, 400 population. But this one has turned out phenomenal. We have a pastor there whose name is Linda, and she came out of the Nazarene Church as a pastor. And it's just been a very orderly growth. And so we elected after 2 years, this year, to start the children's program. And it's just fantastic. Got a young lady there whose name is Valeska. You just wouldn't believe how well she works with children and how great that this program has turned out to be. So you just have to come down and see it. So we have plans now going from the community. Where'd we go? Let's get back on our little car and go. We're going to go back up to Cerco de Piedra. We're going to come down, right down the street, about halfway between, whoa, stop right there, Las Cabezas, the heads. And we already have an insight there. We look in communities, so we go from the man of peace or the person of peace. Where's that come from? The pastor of the church, whose name is Javier at San Jose, is marrying the daughter of a pastor in Las Cabezas. Wow, what a connection, huh? So we have that person of peace. So we were pleased at that. That marriage will take part, I think, in December. And we're really excited about that union. So let's go from there and see our next plan. We're going to go from La Fortunita now into a community called El Corizo, or Corizo. Actually, there's a government settlement there, if you'll stop, Gary, for just a moment. If you're going into there, you'll find a little community called Bueno Samaritana, or Good Samaritan. And there are probably 35, 40 homes into that. Everybody that's been to a trip with us has passed by this community before. Going down just a little bit, the remainder of the community is there. They do have a school. So we'll be able to do the 7th, 8th, and 9th grade, God be willing. But that's a plan. So let's go to the next one. So now we're back to San Jose. And down from San Jose going into the city of Choluteca is a little community called El Tutilito. I don't know if I said it right or not. We're not really, Francis and I tried to figure out today how I'm supposed to say that. But I don't know. But anyway, it's another community of around 300, 500 people. And if we find a person of peace there, that's where we will go. And that's our plans.
You know, it's interesting to notice, like, if you're watching the map, we have these communities. We have La Fortunita and San Jose and Cerco de Piedra, and these communities that we're kind of just naturally moving into through relationship are really just down the street. This El Tulito is just right down the street from San Jose. It's maybe half a mile. But what happens when we get into these communities, you can see it, especially with like Cerco and La Fortunita, is the communities around it will notice that something's happening. And they'll start sending their kids. And so there's these little pocket communities around La Fortunita who those children then come be a part of the program. And when the community is of the size that we can actually have, there's enough children there for us to run our own program, that is a really organic way for us to move in. And we get invited in because that community already sees the difference we're making in the lives of their children because we're already doing it in the programs that we are running. And now they don't have to walk a mile down the road or a half mile down the road to do that. So I love that we're moving into those communities, but that is the goal. The whole goal of this children's program is that it is repeatable. And we want to repeat that as many times as God is willing to allow us to repeat that. We want to keep moving and keep growing and keep changing the communities. And we believe that ultimately change the face of the country of Honduras in a really positive way.
And it's all really about helping people who primarily have been ignored. That's kind of the way that Christianity spread through the centuries, isn't it? If you go back into the pages of history, you'll see that Christianity grew among those who were slaves and outcasts, people who, to a great extent, didn't have everything they needed. But because of the way God works, nobody is unimportant. And so God, seeing value in those people throughout history, continues to reach out to them and make it possible sometimes for them to get to know him first. And we need to keep that in mind here in the United States, where everything is based primarily on what do you have and what can you give me. What can we give to them is the question we need to ask ourselves tonight. To think about, okay, here we are, and yes, there's this pandemic thing going on, and there's all the financial tensions that are all built into our system. We're getting into the holiday season right around the corner. There's all kinds of stress and tension based on that. And yet, in the midst of all of that, we still have really plenty. Is there a way that God can take the plenty that we have and maybe shift some of that to help the people who don't have anything? And it's a challenge. Obviously, it takes faith and courage to be able to sacrifice in that way. But the reward from that is beyond price. I mean, the value of being able to sacrifice and then see what comes of that sacrifice. Well, like, one of the things is to see a country change. One of the things is to see individual lives changed. One of the things that we didn't make note of, but it is a very fundamental part of our philosophy, every one of these children's programs is connected to the church. We don't go in to try to replace a church, but we want to work hand in hand with the church. And we want, yes, to provide for the children, but we also want to provide for those families, and not just in a material way. A lot of these families get ripped apart because of poverty. Kids have to be taken out of school, and they go to work in the fields, and that's the good thing that can happen. Because a lot of other things that could happen are much worse and would literally put a child in danger, take them apart from their family so that they would never see their family again. And so what we're doing is basically providing a lifeline for these kids. And it's all built around the fact that Jesus calls us to share. Jesus calls us to be reaching out to people. And we ultimately, yes, we want those young people and we want their families to learn who Jesus is. And when that happens, the results are incredible. My next to last trip to Honduras, I had the chance to see about 16 or 17 young people and older people be baptized. We've got a video of a baptismal service that took place mid-August. The young people who are baptized in this particular, on this particular day all grew up in the children's program. And this is the result. We get to see them come to faith. We get to see them begin to see possibilities in their lives.
What we do to see life change. And it doesn't matter if you're involved in a ministry here in the United States or if you're involved with a ministry in Honduras. He just grabbed his head, threw it back down. We do this for life change. We do this to provide, like Dale said, a lifeline, a way for somebody's life to be affected. And this is the fruition of that. This is what we do it for.
Actually, this is the bottom line, guys. This is why we're there. We're so fortunate to be able to witness such a growth. These children grew through this pandemic. God didn't stop the growth of his church. The pandemic can't stop it. Nothing can stop God. And we know that we're going to follow him and do his will. We see now that there are 17 of these young children, with the exception of 2, but they were the parents or aunts of the children that went up through the program. And there were 17 of them, my wife says. I thought there were 16, but my wife corrected me and said there are 17. We love this part of what we do. We want to go and make disciples. it brings hope to these communities, to these children. You know, without Jesus Christ, there's no hope. You take this country, it doesn't seem like there's any hope left. There's a lot of animosity, a lot of hatred. Goodness, it's difficult to see. We're so grateful and we're so blessed to be able to work with this ministry and work in God's vineyard and be a part of this, because it brings us hope. It gives them hope. We're just hoping that this will touch your heart, be a part of what God's doing. You can't stop him. He's going to do it. And we just love it.
We want you guys to be involved with our ministry. We don't want you to be involved with our ministry because we care about your money or your resources. We want you to be involved with our ministry because our ministry is changing lives, and we want you to experience that. As a believer, we want you to experience the joy that comes from being generous and being part of something bigger than yourselves. We want those things for you, and God is moving in Honduras, and God is moving through this ministry, and we want you to partner with us because we want you to experience that. There's 4 things. One that I'm asking everybody in here. It's almost cliche to just say, partner with us in prayer. But we believe that prayer works. And if we believe that prayer works, then we do want you to partner with us in prayer. We want you to be praying for our ministry, and we want you to be praying for the children in Honduras. And we want you to be praying for life change and community change and national change and global change. We want that. So I'm asking all of you to partner with us in that way. And then all of you, there's 3 ways that are just very tangible that you can join in partnership with us. You can do a one-time financial gift. This is a fundraising event. I got to at least talk about money once. I'm so sorry. Anyway, we want you to do a one-time financial gift. We want you to partner with us. Try that first. If you're not ready to make a long-term commitment, try that first and see what God will do with that gift. So that's one way you can partner with us. The second way, if you're looking for something a little bit more long-term, you can sponsor a child. There are lots of kids there that need our help. There are lots of kids on the wall right there. We were just talking today. We were like, oh man, we don't have all the kids from all the communities. We only have these children. So if you use the QR code on those flyers in the back, that will just take you to the general form on the website. There are plenty of kids. The 25 kids that we have back there, or 30 kids that we have back there, are not the only kids that need sponsors. We need sponsors. That is the lifeblood of our ministry. That is where we pool our resources and are able to affect change. We want you to sponsor children. And the third, it's a little scary right now, right? It's a little different because of the pandemic, but when we start taking trips again, we want you to come down, because I'm telling you, you can test me on this. We'll have a conversation about 4 or 5 years from now. I'll have the same conversation with you. You don't go down and not be changed, and you don't go down and forget about this ministry and those people, and you don't go down and not want to be a part of it forever. So we want you to partner in one of those 3 ways, and each of you are going to have some time here to decide which way that is, either a one-time gift, a child sponsorship, or committing that as soon as we do start taking trips again, we want you to come and see what we're doing in Honduras and what God is doing in Honduras. I'm done. I've talked plenty. I'm going to let you talk. We're going to pray. Dale's going to pray for us when he's done. And then we're just going to play some music. There will be actual music. And we're just going to give you guys 10 or 15 minutes to just talk amongst yourselves, pray with your spouse, talk with the people at your table, and make a decision. And we hope that you'd be willing to partner with us and see what's going on.
So key for me in the understanding of how much should I give are a couple of things. And I'm not just talking about giving to Honduras Ministries. I'm talking about the fact that, God has created us and called us to be generous. To a great extent, that separates us from the rest of creation. God has equipped us to be generous. He's equipped us to be givers. But how much should I give? The keys for me. Quick story from the Bible about the fact that, we don't know this from the Bible. We know that there was a huge earthquake that took place in the city of Jerusalem, and there was a lot of need there. And if you read between the lines in the New Testament, you see that Paul, who's a pretty well-known guy in the New Testament, he wrote a lot of it. So he's traveling around from church to church, and they're giving donations. And a lot of that money was given specifically to go to help with the needs in Jerusalem. And you know what? They've faced the same question. How much should I give? How much should I give? And Paul was pretty clever and pretty quick to point out, really, it's not based on anybody else. It's based on what God has given you. What do you have? And it doesn't matter the ultimate dollar size. What matters is what's in your heart. What's in your heart? Are you being generous? There are people in this room who could probably give hundreds, maybe thousands of dollars, and yeah, it would show up on their radar. There are other people who are in this room that giving $10, $50, $100 shows up big time. In the end, it doesn't matter the dollar amount that you give. What matters is what's in your heart. And then the other thing that I keep coming back to, we have been created in God's image, and God is a giver. Dare I say, all I have to do is point to the cross. God gave his son for us. And God calls us to walk in his footsteps. So John is so accurate about the fact that it all begins with prayer. I'm going to encourage you, and I'm going to pray for us in just a minute, for God to meet us one-on-one right in the living room of our hearts. And let's really seek God about how much perhaps he may want us to give tonight, whether we should give. That's more a question between you and him than it is between you and me. What is God calling you to do? And so take a moment. We're going to pray together. Take a moment and talk. There are people at every one of these tables who are already sponsoring children. Or if you have questions and would like to talk to a member of the board of directors, we'd be happy to share with you. But consider how God may be calling you to help tonight. I'm going to pray, give you 10 or 15 minutes to consider yourselves about what to do. We have a young lady equipped to help you if you'd like to go back into the area there, the foyer area. She's set up to help you actually begin a sponsorship tonight, or you can do it right on your phone. If you wanted to go to the Honduras Ministries website, you can take care of that yourself. Just follow the process. But take a moment now and let's consider where God may be calling you or how God may be calling you to get involved. And then after you spend some time thinking about that, I'll come back up and I'll dismiss us. So let's have a prayer right now. Dear God in heaven, this is your work. And so, since it is your work, I'm asking for you to resource your work, to move in our minds and in our hearts in whatever way is appropriate for your purpose. And I'm thankful that you've created us with such uniqueness and difference, and you've woven us all together. And where one is weak, another is strong. Where one is passionate, another is not filled with passion for that, but they've got passion for something else. And I love the way that you weave all of that together to accomplish your purpose in this world, and I pray for that to happen here tonight. I'm asking you to meet every individual right now in a one-on-one personal way. Have a conversation with us. Help us to hear you. In the midst of all of this presentation and all the information, help us to hear your voice and move in our hearts in the way that will help to resource your work. We love you, we thank you, and we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.